Thank you for joining me as we take a look at this Sunday's Introit. This is from Psalm 56. For you have delivered my soul from death, yes, my feet from falling, that I may walk before God in the light of life. When I am afraid, I put my trust in you. In God, whose word I praise, in God I trust, I shall not be afraid. What can flesh do to me? In God, whose word I praise, in the Lord, whose word I praise, in God I trust, I shall not be afraid. What can man do to me? The main focus of this psalm is that of being afraid. And we know well, I'm pretty sure we know well what it means to be afraid. And the object of that fear, it can be many things. And it can come from different places. It can come from health or a health scare. It can come from weather. I grew up in parts of the country where we would frequently get tornadoes, or there was a possibility of getting them. And when springtime would come around and storms would start blowing up, it would be something we always had to keep our mind on. That it could possibly have a tornado. Perhaps you've lived in places where there are hurricane threats. We can be afraid of these natural events. We can also be afraid with things happening around us, like concerns for the economy. And those are all legitimate sources of fear that make us wonder what's going to happen next. However, the focus of the fear of the psalmist, is that of other people. And we also know how fear of the neighbor can change our behavior and what we assume about them. We have protests happening in this country because of a lack of trust towards people whose job it is to protect. We know what fear can do. And we also know our response to it. Perhaps we take safety measures to help mitigate our fears. When my wife and I visited Paris, we looked at advice of how to protect against pickpockets. And when you walk around, you have your wallet in your front pocket. Don't place it in your back pocket or anything valuable there. If you have a bag or a purse, make sure it's latched or has a zipper on it and it's closed at all times. And in fact, I remember when we were in front of Notre Dame, I witnessed a woman hurry over to a group of police officers, and she was telling them that she caught somebody trying to take money out of her pocket. We take, or try to take, safety measures. However, the object of being afraid in the psalm is not based upon any potential loss of property. It is based on the potential loss of life. Death and the reality of it can change the way we act and what we do. Perhaps we have the mindset that we try to make the best of what we have right now because we only have one life to live. My generation, the millennials, has focused on the idea of having experiences. And I believe that the idea of having experiences finds its origins in the thought that we only have one life to live. And if that is the case, then you better get to it and make yourself as happy as you can. Don't wait. If that is our approach to life, then the reality of death might influence the way we live and what we do or do not do. The psalmist asks the question, what can flesh do to me? And he asks that question because the object of his trust is in God. His trust is not in experiences. His trust is not in the goodwill of mankind. His trust is not in the possibility that he owns a lot of guns and can protect himself. His trust is in God. And even though it might seem like a simple idea, notice he keeps telling himself this. He repeats this. And even though God is the focus of his trust, there is always doubt. It's almost as though death is always there, saying to us, here I am. What are you going to do about me? And if we think the answer to that question is through our actions or our preparation, then we will be disappointed. The answer to that question is always Jesus. What are you going to do about death? Nothing. But Jesus did something. And because of Jesus' death and resurrection, a reality that we all face, death, that reality is not something that forces our focus on it. The reality of death is not the thing that changes our belief and behavior. It's Jesus and Jesus alone. That's the object of our trust. And this is something that the psalmists, like us, this is something that we have to continually remind ourselves of, because death is always there, tempting us to be afraid of it. Just a little too much. But we don't have to, because of Jesus and what he has done for us on the cross. Thank you for joining me.